Welcome to Network Today. I'm Sheryl Powers.
I'm Rob Bliss.
Right, and we're here to take you from meeting people to
making money.
That's right. We are always working toward that goal. Remember, right? Networking Nation. Remember, we're always working toward that goal. It's nice to make a lot of friends. That's going to happen along the way.
But gotta pay the bills.
That's right. But at the end of the day, we need to make money. So we're here to help you. Right, shorten that long relationship building game,
right?
And let's cut a couple of years off some of that.
Yeah.
So,
yes.
Otherwise, you could find yourself in the poorhouse really fast. So, and we've been through it, so that's why we're here to help you through your journey as well.
I do not want you to go through the pain that has taken me all these past many years. We can shorten that game here at Network Today.
Yep, that's absolutely right. So today is episode 17. And I love this because I'm not good at it. There are a lot of things I'm not good at. This thing I'm really not good at.
This is a tough one. This is a real tough one.
This is the core story. So your core story. We're here to help you just get the wheels turning about what your core story is, because what is it that they say? Stories tell. No, stories sell, facts tell.
Right.
I always get that backward.
There you go.
So facts tell, stories sell. And getting that core story is so pivotal, and it's hard sometimes. What do you do if you don't have a good story?
Well, you just wing it.
Well, is that good? That's not good. You can't wing it.
That's not good.
But you have to find a way to get a core story if you don't have one.
Well, you got to have a plan. You got to know how to do it. And I think that's been my problem, is I really haven't studied this storytelling thing because I'm not good at it. Therefore, I kind of try to sweep it under the carpet.
Yeah.
So
I love our guest. Love our guest, because he is all about the core story because of the story that he grew up through, right? So he lived his story.
Great story. I mean, he's a branding specialist. He helps it, part of what he does is help business owners create their brand through core story.
Right. I have to ask you this, Rob, in networking, is there a standout story that you've heard from somebody that you're like, man, that was so meaningful to me that I need to find something like that I can own for myself?
That's a great question.
Well, I knew I threw this at you.
Great question.
Without any warning.
Wow. So many good people out there. Well, you know what? I mean, just recently, I think I talked about this just a couple of episodes ago, was the fact that Sean Rosensteel.
Right.
His business was failing.
Yeah.
And then he turned it around by hiring like a coach, a company to help him. And they talked about the story branding and developing what your company stands for. And then within, I don't know, I can't remember what it was, 2 or 3 years later, I mean, he sells his business.
Yeah.
So that, it was great to hear it from him where, he was on a sinking ship, but then he hired the experts. They told him that the importance of developing a core story for his company. So, yeah. And for me, it wasn't something that really came out of a networking group, but it came out of multiple conversations with a fierce networking partner, and that's Ron Kennedy. Okay.
Right. So learning that he wanted to be an attorney at some point, and he was kind of going down that road, and he was like, this isn't for me. But he really loves helping people. That was just too heavy for him, though. Mm-hmm. So then he gets into the New York life space where he can help, and he just has a heart for the elderly. Right. So it became so simple for me understanding where his heart was. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think the course, developing your core story, is where your heart is. So what started you on your journey? What kept you on your journey, and why you ended up at the end of or through your journey, at this point in your journey, why you ended up there, and how is that so pivotal for you, right? What's the most important part of that?
Well, I mean, that's a great point, Sheryl, because, start with your why, as Simon Sinek says in his New York Times bestseller, but you got to have that. Otherwise, with all the hardships that we go of being entrepreneurs and growing our business, the ups and downs that drive you crazy, you've got to have that passion, that burning desire to succeed. So, yeah.
That's right. And there are people, and hopefully we can help address some of the breaking it down steps for you if you don't really have a story, because some people just have a job, right? And they like their job. They're good at their job.
Sure.
We need people who have a job.
Right.
Some things aren't necessarily born out of like a tragic incident or, failure that we then had to work so hard to overcome. It wasn't an overcoming story. It was just hey, I needed a job and I like what I do. And that's okay. But we still have to have a core why that helps us develop that core story.
Yeah.
So hopefully with our guest, if you really tune in and take copious notes, I think you'll be able to begin to break that down. So when we come back, we're going to give, if you've listened to the other 16 episodes, our Grand Slam, which is our success story of the week. You excited about yours?
Yep.
You're always excited about yours.
This is my favorite part.
That's right. I love mine. I don't know that it's a total Grand Slam, but I love mine. So we'll talk about it when we come back.
Are you having trouble with your VoIP phone system? Smart Office USA to the rescue. We're a local company here in DFW with real people, certified technicians, and we even come to your office to help you. Smart Office USA, representing the #1 VoIP phone system on the planet. And we are right here in DFW, ready to help you. Call us 214-272-0921 or go to www.smartofficeusa.com.
Welcome back. And we're going to talk about our Grand Slam, which is our success story of the week. Rob, you got a big one.
Okay. Well, again, another one here is neat story because I was at Lynn Barrett's Dallas Lunch and Learn, and she had an exciting speaker, and her name was Nicolette Barrett. No relation to Lynn, but she was a very dynamic speaker. So that's what brought me there. I got there early to talk to Lynn a little bit, and I was going around the room, working the room a little bit, met a nice gentleman. His name was Erwin Barrett, and he was the husband of our speaker, and he was there supporting his wife. And it turns out that he owns several businesses, and he was going to be running for kind of a county commissioner of Plano. So he's a very interesting guy. And we exchanged cards, made a one-on-one. Then his wife comes in. I meet her, which has been great for us, Sheryl, because she's going to be helping us on one of our future seminars about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And so really excited about that. And that's what's so great about the networking experience is that one thing leads to another.
Yeah.
And it fulfills needs that you're looking for. We were looking for a speaker, and boom, by attending an event, we got it. So, but Erwin, great guy. I had a one-on-one with him. He's already introduced me to 3 people already. He's taken the initiative of calling me. I didn't even have to follow up with him. Was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, a great guy. I've introduced him to a couple of local politicians here in Farmers Branch to help him out on his campaign, because this is the first time that he's run for a position. So it's really neat how you can sort of get your community to help other people. So that's what I love about networking.
That's right. Well, one of the things you touched on that you do so well, and that please make a note of this, because it's one thing to meet people, but it's another to begin to creating that relationship and then build that bridge of trust. So you're going to get referrals. And so what you do is intentionally schedule one-on-ones with people when you meet them, right? So it's so easy to go through a room networking. Hello.
Yes.
Pocket my business cards, go home, sleep. Wake up the next day. Hello. All right. It's so easy to become robotic. But what you do is you care about the people you're meeting and you want to meet them again and learn more about them. And that is so pivotal in the whole networking process, so that you can develop and grow and nurture those little plants. So for me, this is my networking tree. Actually, we jump a little further up into the limbs here. And I don't even remember how I met this gal, but this is what keeps me going. Like, this is the stuff that charges my batteries. So I met this gal who had recently moved here from California. Were you the one who introduced me to Tony?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, there we go. All right. So you were the one. Now that I'm like going through it. Yeah, it was you. So you said, you need to meet Tony. She is just delightful. And she'd moved here from California, as I had to, right? So I always love to meet California transplants, so I can kind of help them get like plugged in. And She runs the eWomen,
Mm-hmm.
and as you well know, and I know the organization. I love the organization, what they stand for. But I really wanted to see what Tony was made of, right? We had a great one-on-one,
Right.
really liked
Right.
her heart. But here was the kicker. When I would introduce her to somebody, I'd go to a networking event the next week. So I'd introduce online, right? Here's your email. I'd go to a networking event the next week, and I'd see her with that person.
Oh my
She's so
gosh.
intentional
Wow.
about following up, having those discussions, getting to know people
Mhm.
on a real granular, genuine level. And she's just catapulting her business,
yes.
right? Her sphere of influence here in North Texas. And so I introduced her to people who introduced her to people who introduced her to people. And man, she's so intentional. And with that, so the reason I was saying is my grand slam was because she sent me this card, and I know she sends it to everybody, but I like to believe it's just me.
Right.
So it was like, Sheryl, I just love what we're doing. Thank you for all the introductions, and I just appreciate you. And that just went, it just hit me at a week where I was like, a weak spot in my week, and I
Right.
really needed that,
Right.
plug me into an
That's
outlet
great.
charge that she gave me. And so that's why that was my grand slam. Thank you, Tony, for just being such a doll. So that was it,
Cool.
because that's what networking's about. Sometimes, so it will lead to money at some point. But right now, this was just a really great relationship.
Yeah, I really look forward
yeah.
to getting to know her better. She's dynamic, again, and she's sincere.
Yeah.
She's intentional, like you said, and she does. She's a go-giver.
That's right.
Yeah.
But the common theme, and it really falls along this theme. So the common theme between yours and mine was the follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
So the relationships only build if you follow up and continue to have discussions that are real meaningful, genuine discussions. And the other thing is that she's got such a great story. Like her core story was so meaningful to me. So anyway, that's it. So we've got a fabulous guest. You guys are going to love this gentleman. So when we come back, we're going to talk to Paul Hittner about your core story. Let's face it, employees waste time on the company dime. Why? Life's complicated. We help keep the junk of life out of the workplace and in the hands of the experts. Empowered Advantage, empowering employees, giving businesses the advantage. Letter M as in magnificent, poweredadvantage.com. Well, this is going to be a really interesting interview, discussion. I'm not going to pelt you, right? I'm not going to pelt
that
you.
seems really serious now.
I know, but we have Paul Hittner. And the reason this is going to be really interesting is because we made a shift, really, just right before we're talking, because of what his core
Story.
area, area of expertise is. So this is going to be fascinating because we're all doing this kind of on the fly. Right. So this is, everybody kind of gets to just watch transparently how we have this discussion about what Paul Hittner is a brilliant master at. And that's the core story, which every networker needs to discover for themselves and have in their belly. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just another tool you can add to your repertoire. So I'm happy to share it with your audience because we're all about networking. I'm not trying to change the whole flow of your whole strategy. Just another tool you can put in your back pocket.
That's exactly right. So, and I think what's so nice about this format, Rob, is that we can pivot, right? Because
Absolutely.
I think after we start discussing things, and it would be great if you've got some other thoughts that you'd like to, put on the website and tell us what you want to hear about, because hearing Paul talk about the core story, like that made a lot more sense than where we thought we wanted to go with this.
Absolutely.
And Paul has BizVisionary. All one word, right?
Right.
All
correct.
one word. So you can look at Paul Hittner, BizVisionary. And you've been doing it 3 years?
Times 4. Yeah.
Times 4, 12 years. Sorry.
More or less. I started as a freelance designer
Okay.
and slowly built up to more of a strategist.
Okay. Yes. Graphic strategist. He's a brand developer. And I really love the fresh perspective that you bring things, and certainly based on your own story. That's what really spoke to me. Do you know his story?
I don't.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm all
Get your
ears.
tissues.
Come
ready.
on, open up.
Because this will help.
Nutshell.
I think this will help you if you're watching this to understand how he built the whole core story process based on your story. So just a quick summary of that story.
Yeah, so my story started years ago. I was in high school pursuing a career in graphic design, and I got the chance to work with my first client, which was my mom. And she had a bread business, and I helped her develop the packaging and branding for that. And I just really got to see the struggle and hardships that entrepreneurs go through. And so I knew at that time, that entrepreneurship was something that improved our society as a whole. But what really drove home to me during that interaction with my mom was just how much it improves the personal aspect of the entrepreneur themselves. So I knew I wanted to work with people like my mom and people that wanted to choose that hard path and they're willing to do the work. So I wanted to support them in any way I could.
Oh, well, thank you. Is being an entrepreneur hard, Rob?
It is one of the toughest things that you'll ever experience. And that's why you've got to start with your why and really fully have the passion of what you're doing so that you can get past the tough times.
And that's what the core story is all about. I talk about with my clients is developing a better way to interact with people when you're out at these networking events. So we all know the question that is asked inevitably every single time.
Sometimes and the question is?
Anybody?
Come on, Rob.
So what do you do, right? Come on. So what do you do, right? And whenever they ask you that, or you ask them that, or you allow the conversation to go in that direction, what ends up happening is they turn into a robot, and they're not engaging. They're not really connected with you because they're spouting off the stuff that they're programmed to say. Their features, benefits, products, services. We have specials coming up. All that boring stuff that makes you want to check your watch and find the easiest way to get out. And so a better way to do it, I have a little formula I've kind of created is to, first step is show interest in them and get them to talk about themselves. And whenever you ask questions like, so what's your story? Or what brings you to Texas? I know you don't have the Texas accent. You say again a certain way, and you can kind of lead the conversation toward them as a person. I've found that sometimes they kind of regurgitate anyway, and because they're so used and they're expecting to hear that question. So what do you do? And so they'll just talk about their features and services anyway. But more often than not, they just open up. They just completely open up because nobody really cares about you as a person anymore. Yeah. It's you're talking to screens all day. You're at the supermarket and you stare at the thing when you put your card in, and you don't even interact with the cashier very much. Yeah. So when someone shows a little interest in you as a person, some people just light up and they don't stop. Yeah. And then a lot of times they realize, they're like, oh my gosh, I've been blabbing for the last 5 minutes. Let me ask you, what about you? Yeah. And at that time, you actually have more of a captivated, engaged audience. And it's good to talk about yourself and not your services, but sometimes you can get carried away talking about yourself in a really uninteresting way. So I have a little formula to keep you on point.
Okay, what's the formula? Let's get to this core story formula.
Yes, so there's 4 basic parts. You want it to be emotionally charged. Anytime you can pull at the heartstrings, that's a plus. You could also talk about a transformation story or origin story about how you got started. Maybe you went through a really tough time and you came out on top, show a little adversity. Anytime you could show some vulnerability or humility, that's a good way to connect. Yeah. Right. It also opens them up when you show vulnerability to feel more able to kind of open up to you.
What would be a vulnerability example?
Showing that you've failed at what you do. So, but that failure helped you become a better professional.
I really sucked.
Yeah. Back in the day, I used to try this all the time, and I was running into these walls, and that's when it dawned on me that this is the way to move forward, and that's why So that's an example. Or it just really hard circumstances that you had to overcome. Mm-hmm. Sharing that you struggled with something kind of makes you more of a person. It makes you more connected. Yeah. So people are more willing to engage with you that way. From there, it's really important in this day and age that you have some kind of social impact. So this is something that I talk about with all of the messaging I work on with my clients, and that is that the modern consumer does not just care that you have a product or service that works anymore. It's not enough that you provide good service. You have to stand for something deeper than just the product. So we all live vicariously through the products we buy. We identify as a certain person when we look in the mirror, and we buy things to make us feel that way, or we buy things to make other people think we're that person that we want to see in the mirror. Yeah. So you want to connect your story to showing that you want to have a big impact in the world, and a very specific one. And then the last thing I'll say is showing that you have a vested interest in helping your ideal customers. So everybody says they care about their customers,
right?
But a much more believable, memorable way is to just tell a story about a certain connection, perhaps, that you've had with one of your clients, or give them a story that exemplifies how much you care about this certain type of person or this certain type of audience.
Yeah, because it sounds like all of that kind of speaks to the core of your why.
Exactly. This is basically, you could think of this as an elevator pitch of yourself, and more focused on why you do what you do.
Yeah, I think that's always more meaningful. And so I go back to Rob, one of the reasons that I thought it would be great to have Paul talk on this, and he's talked to another group of ours, mid-market professionals, on this, was because of the story that he told about his beginning with his mom. And that story lives in your brain much more so than the verbal flyer.
And it checks out whenever they're thinking, do I want to hire this guy to handle my brainchild, this great idea that I've built from the ground up, and have him brand me? Whenever I tell a story about, I'm really connected to entrepreneurs, it checks out. Okay, this guy really cares about his mom. He loved working with his mom, and that was a shaping experience for him. Yeah. And it checks out. So that's what it's all about, having a story instead of just telling people that you care about entrepreneurs.
Yeah, the part I like, Paul, what you're describing there, getting emotionally attached. I'm kind of visualizing my website and pulling that core story of my company and who I am into my website, so I visually create the story so the audience can see that. But I really liked how you said that emotional attachment.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's true, and that would really be a great offshoot of this discussion, is how can you take the core story and then relay that through different marketing tools.
Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing. I kind of gave you a very short, concise story that just kind of hit on the basic points. But I encourage anybody developing their core story to have a more expanded one, and you can repurpose this just like any other of your marketing content. You can repurpose it for several different things. So you could have a short one when you're at these kind of events and you're talking to 3 or 4 people at once. You don't want to talk for 4 minutes about yourself. But you could have a longer, more intimate one when you're having a nice sit down over coffee with one person.
Yeah.
And you really want to vibe and connect with that person. And my advice is just to read the room and just figure out, do you want to do a more long, more intimate version, or do you want to do a short, concise one? If the person's checking their watch when you start, you'd be like, okay, I'm not going to pour my heart out for the next 5 minutes. Yeah.
That's right. Well, and when in doubt, my philosophy is err on the side of short. Yeah. So when in doubt, leave it out. So
there you go.
You can't go wrong there. Rob, before we wrap.
Well, again, I just appreciate Paul coming on the show today. And again, I'm walking away with his formula and how I'm picturing, again, my marketing materials, my core message that I want to give to my audience. So thank you very much, Paul, for the advice on that.
Thanks for having me.
Paul is from Iowa, in case anybody else wants to connect with a fellow Iowan. Is that how you say it? It's not an
Iowan. Yeah, okay. That's right. Yeah. And it's its own state up there. That's right. It's up there somewhere, I promise you.
And a little known fact about yourself.
A little known fact.
Wow us.
When I was about 4, I stabbed myself with a pitchfork accidentally.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Right in the foot, because everyone knows when you're out helping your mom garden, the most productive, effective thing for you to do in helping her is just to randomly stab the ground with a pitchfork. And so I stabbed my foot was under the dirt. So anyway.
And you forgot it was there, right?
Yeah. I found out very quickly exactly where it was.
Oh my goodness. God bless your mom. God bless your mom. So Paul, thank you. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you,
and for
Paul.
your core story. And we will be back. I'm just fascinated by the core story because I don't think I'm very good at it.
I'm not either. I learned a lot. A while back I read a great book called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller, but I felt Paul made that book pop,
right?
Became real,
yeah,
and really he had some great advice.
Yes, and isn't it those people who do make themselves vulnerable through some kind of personal story? Right, that leads into at some point what you do for a living. But first and foremost, it's setting the foundation of just being a real person, right?
Yeah, I mean, being totally authentic. I mean, we're all used to that salesman that just, jumps on you and starts talking about, his great product and the great deal he's got. And again, I just loved his approach and how he handled it, that we've got to become real. We got to become authentic. We got to, feel, and so that the audience, your customer, your prospect, the fellow networker can see your sincerity. So it was a really great wake up call for me to listen to Paul today.
Yeah, me too. However, not so real that you just ramble on or that you expose too much, right? The things that people don't want to know, don't need to know.
Right.
So it is about preparing. That kind of is an ongoing theme through every one of these episodes.
Right.
And it's preparing in advance, getting that story down in writing. I'm going through a formulated, that's not right, a formulated program, a system that helps you develop different variations of that, right? Whether it's short, whether it's long.
Mm-hmm. Well, it reminds me too, people, when you start thinking about preparing and writing and making a script, they just go, oh my God, I can't read a script. But, if we think about when we go to the movies, those actors, actresses, they memorized all their lines from a script, and it doesn't look like a script to me when I see those great films. So we've just got to get used to it. We've got to change a habit. We've got to prepare.
Yeah.
We got to write the script and practice.
Yeah. Yeah. This, once again, is not a good plan. And I do it way too much.
Yeah.
I have to say, I'm a big offender.
I agree totally.
I'm exhausted. I say, yes, this is what I'm going to do. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, what time is it?
Yeah.
Don't make me late again. So core story, I'm on it. You're on it.
We're on it.
Pinky swear. There we go. We're gonna get a core story done, and we'll be back.
A small business is still a business. At Purple Cow Branding, we want to help you execute your greatest visions for your company. Purple Cow works for small businesses that don't have big budgets to spend on their marketing efforts. Inquire now at purplecowbranding.com to be the biggest little guy around. Purple Cow Branding, much more than digital marketing.
All right. Paul is such a great guy. I mean, and I know all the single networking women are swooning because he's a nice looking fellow too, but he's just a great guy. His heart is just so big. And the fact that he talked so much about how he wanted to help his mom, single mom, struggling with her bread company, that to me was the turning point, and how I felt about Paul's ability to do what he does.
Yeah.
And that's help people tell a story.
Well, I met Paul about 3 years ago, through a networking, found out he was specialized in branding, and brought him into our company where he, set up a new logo and that for Spec Lab, did an incredible job. But again, seeing his story is what really closed the deal for me. It wasn't just, here's what I can do, here's my price, sign here. No, it was a story.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that, and I'm glad he's on our program today.
Yeah, I am too. That was a great addition. And your story. Do you have one?
Well, I got a long story, but you know what? Again, after hearing Paul, and that is, I've got to do some homework here. I've got to write it down. I've got to really focus, because how he emphasized the importance of our core story and how we need to reach our audience through that, because that's how we're going to connect is through story.
Yeah.
So yeah, Paul had a lot to talk about.
Yeah. And I've got a great story too. We had a really tumultuous journey to get where we are, and the ups and downs. And that's how we built out the business, the suite of services that we have. And so I forget to tell people that story until we then have our one-on-one 3.0 or whatever we're at, right? And we have some time, and then I'll tell people the long story, and then all of a sudden for them, bing, the light bulb goes off, and it all makes sense.
Well,
So,
I think it's a to us. I think we're scared sometimes to tell our story because it's going to make us vulnerable. We're going to expose ourselves, and we're kind of going, well, no, I don't want to quite go there. But people want to see the authentic you.
Yeah.
They want to see that you're real, that you have struggled. So I think it's so important. So we've got to ourselves get in touch with our story by being able to share some of our struggles that we've had.
word of the week, vulnerability.
Yes.
Right? And it makes you genuine. And again, we talked about this a little, stay away from the TMI. Don't have to go into the super secret closet or anything like that. But the basic story. However, when I say that I've got a great story, I know you've got a story, and we've all have our journey. To be able, though, to pull all those elements together and make it cohesive, it's a gift.
Yeah.
It's a gift. So I might have to tap into Paul's gifting
Yes.
to help me, because I've seen what he's done with some other clients, and to have him help, because that is so important. And what it does is it really piggybacks on the elevator pitch,
Right.
because the elevator pitch is like an isolated. So elevator pitch, if you missed it, that was episode 16 with Jeff McKissick. But the elevator pitch is kind of like a small story, like a news story.
The Cliff Notes.
Yeah, that's right. A topical story.
Yeah.
And you have a story of the month. That's the elevator pitch. But this is your core story, and it doesn't really change. This one doesn't really change.
Right.
But you should have different lengths depending on the time that you have and the audience, because you don't want to you don't want to just like, okay, thank you for looking at me in the eyes. I'm going to, pour the bucket of water over your head until you drown with all the information I'm about to pour out on you. So, being strategic, being intentional, being prepared with a short story, medium story, and then that longer story.
Right.
So important. I'm going to do it. I promise.
I'm going to do it. Let's hold each other accountable here.
That's right. So, I found this great website. So if y'all want to look it up, it's Storied Inc., STORIED Inc.com. And they've got, I think it's 5 storytelling tips. All right. So he talks about his uncle Artie or whatever, that everybody's got an Uncle Artie who tells all the great stories. And then there are those of us who, I can't even repeat a story. Like I can't tell a joke. Like I can't even keep the storyline straight. So I'm terrible at it. So I need a system. So this really does have some good systems about the little tips and tricks. So ask a much better opening question than, what did he say people always ask? What's the first question that they ask?
What do you do?
That's right.
What do I do?
That's right. Right. So what do you do? I hate that question, honestly, because I'm just regurgitating something because I'm not thinking.
Right.
I don't have a brain in my head. So this is what they recommend. Hey, what's giving you energy these days? One of mine is, and I love this, I might adopt this one. One of mine is, so what do you do for fun? Like,
right.
What do you and your family, what do you typically do what's a Saturday look like in your home? Right. I don't know everything, but those are some of the things that I think help it make it a little more personal. Another one, you want to read it for us?
I can't read that.
Okay. I'll do it for you then. Set your emotional vibe to curious.
Ooh.
Who used that word curious?
God, we just heard that.
JC
Yes,
Beltran.
That's right.
On the discipline episode.
Yes.
So I just love this because it's all kind of coming together, right? So set your emotional vibe to curious, because people tend to give up things faster when you're more curious.
Yeah, I like this.
You can read this one. Now you can read.
Focus on relationship over transaction. Oh my gosh.
So what's our little phrase that we say? You're going to sell through, not to.
Yes.
Isn't that what this is saying?
That's all about that. And that's something that's so important to teach the newbies, right? That they're all being told by their sales manager, go out there, make a sale, close it on the dotted line. But no, it's relationship.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to turn people off.
Okay. So number 4, Did not coordinate this with Paul at all. Number 4 is develop your work like a story.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
So again, this is storiedinc.com.
Mm-hmm.
You can find this there. And then this is funny because this
Wow.
is right along Susan Bryant's topic, right? This
Right.
is like tying them all together.
That is perfect. Have a nice business card.
That's right. So
That is, I love how this is all coming together.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
yeah, so this helps you build the story from start to finish, right? From the concept to then creating a good communication to being genuine and then actually having something that's a good quality leave behind
Yeah,
in a business card. So that's where I like that one. All right, so we always like to leave now with 3 action items.
Yes. And number 1, Sheryl, is going to be, what is your core story about?
Okay.
Okay. And I think that we've got to, again, it's everybody, you've got to take the time. You got to do your homework on this. It's very, very important to how you reach out to your community, how you develop yourself within your networking community, new people that don't know anything about you. So you've got to find out what is your core story.
Now, I have a thought on this. What do you think about this? So if you're not sure, or even if you are sure, what do you think about going to somebody else who might know you pretty well and helping them help you
Ooh, I like that.
develop your core story?
I like that.
Okay. So it's kind of a core story partner.
Yeah, no,
Right.
yeah, absolutely.
Muse.
That's a great idea.
Muse.
There you go.
All right. Number 2.
Number 2, find out from other people how they perceive you and your company's purpose. So yeah, because when I wrote that down, I said, man, I've got to do that because I have my own perception of what I'm telling people about my company and my goals and so on. But how are other people really doing? Kind of scary.
Yeah.
Open yourself up. There's got to be a little vulnerable here, Sheryl.
Yeah.
But I really think, and maybe after the meeting, I'm going to sit down with you and ask you that. So yes.
That's a great point. And I think we'll be surprised, but we have to be willing to be open to the discussion, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
if you do have thoughts, please make them constructive,
Yes.
not destructive.
Yeah.
But all right, so number 3, find out if your team is on board. Now, this is pertinent to the discussion we were having right before we started the show today.
Just before. Yeah, absolutely. Because what I was talking about with my team is that we've got to get together as a team so we can promote the company of who we are so that we're not each on a different page
With the same story.
with the same story.
Right.
And so it's so important because again, you got to be a great wordsmith, so that your audience doesn't get confused. So, I mean, great point right here. Perfect timing, learning about this so that again, I can go back and as a team, we can build that so we're all telling the same thing.
Time for the whiteboard.
Yes.
Right.
Love the whiteboard.
That's right. And a Saturday morning buffet so you all can, I think it's important too when you have teammates and you're talking about your story and you're trying to get it all. And my husband and I had to go through this too. We had to whiteboard and then drill down and then agree on what that story was.
Yeah, there you go.
Because if you can't agree on it and not everybody's bought in, then you got all this stuff going out into the marketplace.
And I think that's a really good point because again, I'm thinking maybe we all are on the same page, but if you can come to that meeting and really open up, be honest, be transparent, and then there's no there's going to be no repercussions here. We're here to make the company better. We're here to make our own self better.
That's right.
So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. Don't ever assume
Yes.
that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah.
Assume.
And a great learning experience right here is if my perception is wrong, there's nothing wrong with being wrong.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
That's
Because
right.
if I'm wrong, that means I'm going to learn something
That's
next.
right. That's
I'm
right.
going to get I'm going to grow from that situation. So yeah.
Well, let's get our core story down.
Okay.
I know we're both going to work on this.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Paul, for being our guest.
Yes.
That was just so super good. We want to hear from you. info@networktodaydfw.com. And please go to the website and subscribe via email so that you're going to get Rob's library, my tech tips
tool.
with little tools that
Yeah.
are going to help you electronically navigate through things. And then we also want to hear what topics, right? We want to keep this thing going so that it appeals to you.
Yes, we need your feedback. We want to
That's
know
right.
what you need to know.
That's right. That's right. And good stories. So here we are. Another great episode. I love
Good
this.
to be with you.
All right.
Everybody have a great week.
All right. Bye.
This has been a Purple Cow production.